And welcome to Buckeye Huddle. Appreciate you so much for joining us. I'm Chuck Maletti. My friend Mark Givler from down in San Antonio, where he is covering the Navy All-American Bowl. This is all the guys who got next, and Mark has been talking to them, watching them practice. We'll see them play the game here coming up soon. But Mark, 3 days of practice in San Antonio. I'm jealous. How you had it? How you been doing down there?
Good. It's unseasonably warm even for San Antonio, so I haven't had to put a sweatshirt on or anything yet. It's been nice.
Nice. We have got at least 5 Ohio State prospects who are actively involved in this game, and a couple other guys that they are after, and none bigger down there, of course, than Chris Henry Jr. And of course, we've had a ton of wide receiver news going on at Ohio State, and Chris all of a sudden has become even that much more important in the outlook of the 2026 season. I guess for one, how's he looking? Have you talked to him? What's he thinking? What's going on?
Yeah. So yes to everything.
Right.
But no, I've talked to him quite a bit. There is an update from him on the YouTube channel. If people want to watch that, him talking about like those final couple days before he signed with the Buckeyes and how everything went down. That's over on youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Chris had a phenomenal first day. I thought he was maybe the best player at the end of the day. Day 2 on Wednesday was a little quiet. They did some one-on-ones. They had a joint practice, some one-on-ones. One, I think 1 out of 3, and then had a nice catch on a post in the scrimmage section. And then just today they did a lot of team scrimmage on the West team. And Chris had another great day of practice, had a couple touchdowns in red zone work, and was winning a lot of his reps. So he's had a really strong week. He looks, again, he just looks sudden at his size. He's got to be 6'6" now. And the way he's able to get off the line of scrimmage and just how clean his releases are at that size is really impressive. I think as we've seen with the movement in the portal right now, chances continue to go up that he could maybe find himself a starter as a freshman, which I never really was going to put that on him. But the way things have been shaking out right now, I think that's at least in the realm of possibility. But he's going to be a guy who, regardless, I think is going to be able to help Ohio State right away.
You know, when we talk about Chris, there's something I wanted to ask you, because I saw something that you tweeted the other day, and I had watched not long ago a couple of the 247 guys. This is before Chris ended up before signing day, and they were talking about him kind of in comparison to Jeremiah. And one of the things that 247 had not listed him as their number 1 receiver. They had him down, dropped him down to number 5, and they were kind of trying to justify that ranking. And one of the things that they were bringing up was 50-50 balls. When you talk about a guy who is, a true number 1 like Jeremiah that really stands out, they make those 80-20 balls in the high school ranks and at the camps and in 7-on-7. And to them, the ball skills that Chris had at his height were just not impressive when it came to contested catches. And you feel the opposite. Can you elaborate on that?
I've just watched him do it over and over again. I mean, you saw the insane catch he made against Aquinas. I've seen him just when he was at Withrow, he would do it. He just mossed people. I saw it today. They threw him a jump ball in the end zone. He goes right over top and pulls it in. Earlier in the week on the first day of practice, he was the safety was coming over the corner on his back hip. The safety's coming over. He goes in there and pulls it away from him. I've just seen him do it over and over again. I'm honestly not sure why anyone would put lack of ability on contested catches as anything as a negative on his scouting report. That would be, for me, his ability to make contested catches is a positive. But again, if we're going to start setting the bar at Jeremiah Smith, we may be waiting another 30 years. We may be waiting 30 more years to find someone who lives up. Because I haven't seen a Jeremiah. I've been doing this like almost 20 years. I had never seen a Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah.
Julio Jones was kind of my gold standard before that. But he does things that Julio didn't do.
Right. Well, I just wanted to get you on record with that.
I think that's odd.
because that clip was floating around there from two of the honchos over at 247, justifying their lack of a number one ranking at that point, which they did change. And that's obviously great stuff. It's 6'6", and we've all seen it on the film. I just want to know from someone who's watched him a lot in practice that is in fact a skill and a plus of his, as you would imagine it would be anyway. But Chris, it comes down to it, and obviously Hartline leaves. He gets the news not directly from Ohio State. Is that right? He heard it. They tried to call him, but he didn't get the call. And then he hears it second or third hand. And what did he have to say about the whirlwind that was those final 3 days?
Yeah, I mean, he just sat down with his family a lot, obviously, and he talked to Ryan Day, of course, throughout. But he sat down with his family and was like, this was our decision the whole way, and believes in Ryan Day, and I think a really big thing for him is coming in his freshman year and having that year to learn from Jeremiah Smith. That was something he referred to multiple times during my conversations with him throughout his recruiting process, but even more so in asking him about why he stuck with Ohio State there at the end. And I just think, from his perspective, there's just no other player in college football next year that could help him make that transition more so than Jeremiah Smith, and potentially having the opportunity to start across from him at this point, given how wide open that third receiver spot might be at this point. But that was just such a big thing for him and his family, and they were all just so comfortable with Ohio State and with Ryan Day that he just that's what he wanted to do. So it was it was an interesting way of finding out, because again, Brian Hartline tried to call him the night before, didn't get a hold of him. So he ends up finding out like in the car on the way to his announcement ceremony or to his signing ceremony where he's supposed to be signing with Ohio State. So he just said, look, I'm just going to take a day or two and just make sure that everything's, feels right, I guess would be the best way to put it. And the rest is history. And now he's very, very eager to get in there and get to work.
Well, we remember when the kind of Chris first started kind of opening up to talking to other schools throughout the recruiting process. It was Oregon, it was LSU, and Cortez Hankton. So you got a relationship existing there. And I did see that Cortez had texted him after he got the job and said, excited to coach you. And Chris was like, what? So you got that connection there. And then I think you're absolutely right. When it comes to, could anybody kind of, when it comes to the fame, when it comes to everything that goes with it, relate to Chris in college football, what this is going to be like, potential missteps he made? There's only Jeremiah. That's it. There's nobody else. And you and I have talked about the level of fame that Chris already has, that he's coming into college football with. It is immense. And it'll be similar to, we'll see CJ Barnett or somebody attached to his hip after the games, just like with JJ. That's going to be what it is with him, because he is that level of famous coming in. And as he produces, it'll only get bigger. But interesting stuff definitely from him there. And he is not the only Ohio State wide receiver commit down there. We've also got Jaquon Guilford, who also made the Navy All-American game, the number one player in Indiana. And to be quite honest, his, the potential of seeing him next year has risen quite a bit as well. And at 6'2", about 190 pounds, he certainly physically fits the bill of a guy who can be ready. How's he looking?
Yeah, actually, he's looking really good. They had their joints, not their joint scrimmage. They had their West team had a scrimmage today, and he's been lining up on the opposite side of Chris Henry Jr. And that's gonna be a formidable receiving core on Saturday afternoon with Chris and Jerquaden on the outside, and then Caden Dixon Wyatt in the slot. That's been a really good group this week, but he must have had 6 or 7 catches today in team practice. A lot of nothing like crazy like 50-yard bomb, but just like 12 yards, 10 yards, 8-yard out, 15 yards. Just kind of picking them apart. Had maybe the catch of the day yesterday in their joint practice in one-on-ones, where he was hand fighting with his right arm and was kind of getting it held, and reached out with his left arm and grabbed it for a touchdown. He's had a tremendous last couple of days. So he's looked really good. He's got a lot of burst to him at his size. He can go vertical, but he's become, in my opinion, again, a much better intermediate route runner. I think he's always kind of been a guy who can take a bubble screen to the house or he can go vertical, but he's really become reliable in that intermediate range.
Great stuff to hear about Jaquon. Of course, we've got on the other side of the ball, and we've seen some of these reps with Ohio State cornerback commit, who you and I both really like and have talked about extensively, Jordan Thomas, out of Bergen Catholic. Of course, the Buckeyes lose his former teammate this week, Quincy Porter, to the transfer portal, which is a lot of the reason that things are opening up for Chris Henry and Jaquon Guilford. But Jordan Thomas down there repping against Chris Henry Jr., and we've seen a lot of the clips come out, and he's certainly holding his own against one of the very best wide receivers we've seen come out in some time. How has Jordan look, aside from the few clips that we've seen kind of circulate on social media?
Yeah, and he got the best of Chris in one of those one-on-one reps yesterday, and he's just, and we've talked about this before with him, he's just very physical.
Yeah.
He is one of those guys who really likes to get up in receivers' faces. He's handsy, and I know everyone would get on Davis Igmanosin for that, but I think Davis Igmanosin was a heck of a player for Ohio State, and that's kind of the way Jordan Thomas has been playing down here. He's been very aggressive and physical, and so he's had a solid week. I think, again, this is another guy that we talked about maybe getting in the rotation early or having some type of kind of role where he's in maybe in the fourth quarter of some games that maybe aren't as competitive. But I think what we've seen in the portal here, we're starting to see the possibility of him playing more than maybe we thought, or having to be ready more than we thought he might have to be.
Without a doubt. And, when it comes to that physicality, and I saw, a lot of those comments underneath the video, oh, that's holding, like, this is what you want out of your corner. And then you can coach out of him whatever you need. You want the natural aggression. Like, that's what you want. And you also want a guy who can physically be able to do that. Like, you want that in his repertoire. He is certainly a physical kid who could probably play safety if you wanted him to, but he's quick enough to play corner. That's fantastic. A big kid, a great prospect out of New Jersey, and an excellent signing to go along with Jay Timmons at corner for Walt, and another guy in Jay who, could potentially, we could see these guys now. And as the Buckeyes get younger in the recruiting class that are going to come in, those guys are going to play younger, and the portal guys getting older. So we're going to have a whole mishmash next year. It's going to be an interesting season for sure. And we'll do another episode here shortly talking about maybe some philosophical changes in recruiting and talent acquisition. Sam Greer, obviously, this has been your number one player in the state of Ohio for several years now, out of Akron-Hoban, a guy who is, close your eyes and picture the prototypical left tackle. We grew one, we got one, number 33 ranked player in the country, one spot out of 5-star. Hopefully he gets that just for his sake. It actually matters to him. But Sam is a total stud. I've seen some clips of him down there putting in work. He looks like he is a college starting left tackle right now at 6'7", 320 pounds. What's your takeaways from Sam on the week so far?
Yeah, it looks very strong. They're not really able to lean on people yet. They haven't done a ton of stuff like in the run game. A lot of it's been the throw game in practice, but Sam's been good. A little bit of a mixed bag there. In the second day in one-on-ones, I think trouble with some inside moves, but in terms of his length, his strength, his ability to kind of dominate at the point of attack in the run game and get out in the second level and be athletic, I've seen a lot of that this week. He's here to compete. Obviously, he's very fired up about playing in this game, and interestingly enough, not really related directly to Sam, but he maybe gave me one of the most interesting comments of the entire week of anyone I've talked to, because I kind of asked him about like what he's going to be walking into this offseason with the disappointing finish to Ohio State's season, and how this is maybe a very long offseason for the people who were on that team who are returning. And he made a very interesting comment. He said, yeah, he's like, I've already been talking to guys who are lifting right now, and I guess it's been brutal. I guess it's been really really brutal, and Sam has told me, like, I guess guys are getting in real time what tough love means.
Absolutely. You love to hear it. You love to hear it after you end getting bullied on the line of scrimmage. And Sam, not a guy I ever think is going to be bullied when he ends up getting his shot at Ohio State on the offensive line. But there is another prospect there out of the state of Ohio who has put out some really nice reps, smaller, quicker, Davis Seaman in the class of 2027, who the Buckeyes have offered. And this is a guy we both really liked, needs to put some weight on, but man, the nuts and bolts are there to work with. This is a lump of clay that's athletic, smaller lineman. And I think that this dude's got some real potential. And what we've seen coming out this week looks great from what I've seen. What have you taken away?
Yeah, and you got to remember, he's here as a junior, so he's here going against mostly players who are a year older than him. He's hung in there very well. He's been playing at right guard. I do think he's an interior guy. I do think he's a guard center at the next level, just because of his. But I think he's got great feet. He's just not. He's not 6'5", 6'6". He's 6'3.5". Man, is he tough? Man, is he feisty? But what I was most impressed with the first couple of days is watching him in one-on-ones, and a lot of these camp one-on-ones in t-shirt and shorts, you're not allowed to bull rush. You're only allowed to kind of speed rush and finesse moves. In these one-on-ones, because they're in full pads, you can bull rush, you can power rush. And so, guys have tried that on him, and he's anchored very well. And that was one thing I'm like, well, because he is a guy who probably needs to put on 20 pounds, maybe 30 pounds. But he is strong. Another interesting, I don't know why I didn't know this. He plays lacrosse.
Oh,
he plays lacrosse. I was asking him, like, what is, spring is going to look like? He's like, well, I'm going to try and get some visits, but I've got lacrosse. I'm like, lacrosse? I was like, you got to be the biggest guy out there. He's like, yeah. I was like, what's it like chasing around all those guys that are half your size? He's like, yeah. He's like, but it does help me with my feet. So
he's got great feet.
Great feet. So that's what his off. But Ohio State's in really good shape there. He's obviously admitted growing up an Ohio State fan. He's got a great relationship there. He's mentioned a couple other schools. He's going to check out Auburn. That's one school I think starting to push for him, especially now that Alex Golish is there as the head coach. He's a Central Ohio guy.
Yeah.
But Ohio State's going to be, I think, tough to beat here. But yeah, he's done really well for himself. I'd love to see him as a guard center prospect to the next level.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that one. Despite, I guess we'll save this for the next talk about offensive line philosophy and some things we need to talk about on that front. But when we talk about modern day, Chris Henry Jr., in my opinion, does not break the modern day curse because he committed as an Ohio kid, does come back to Ohio State from modern day, and you end up losing. Our guy at the end flips to USC. And now it's still live and real. But Danny Lang in the class of also a junior like Davis Seaman is a cornerback who really loves Ohio State. When he got the Ohio State offer, he hugged Matt Guerrieri and Tim Walton, said it brought a tear to his eye. This is what he's always wanted. And he has been to Ohio State and camped. He's an athletic corner that just seems to have all the stuff that Ohio State looks for in a prospect from a personality wise and culture standpoint, and seems like a guy who could potentially be another relatively early commit to me. But he's down there. How's he looked? You got any sense on what he's feeling about maybe a timeline? And are we still in there as big as we once were for him?
I'm like so gun shy at this point with modern day. Because in my opinion, the modern day curse is still alive and well. I don't count Chris Henry.
Me neither.
He was committed before he went out there. Not a true California guy, but
right.
So I'm a little gun shy there, but Danny is still very high on the Buckeyes. I think we'll see spring visits. I don't know that we'll see anything happen in the immediate future, but still very high there. Thing I kind of like this week, he's been playing free safety. Nice. The older guys there are playing corner, of course, so they're getting their fair shake at corner. And so being one of the younger guys, he's kind of been kicked out to free safety, playing a lot of center field there, and he's done a nice job there. He's long, he's athletic, he's got to get a little stronger. I think that's the one thing. He's skinny right now. He's got to get bigger and stronger, but everything else like athleticism, competitiveness, length, all that good stuff. He's got a lot of that, and I've obviously seen him at camp. I saw him early against Aquinas this year. at the beginning of the season. So I've seen a lot of Danny. I've seen a lot of him, a lot more of him than I would normally see of a modern day kid. So, but he's been great.
Okay. Anybody else that should be on our radar that you have seen compete?
That's mostly the big names. I don't really think of Ahmad Hudson, the big time tight end, in 2027. He camped with Ohio State last summer. I don't see that as super realistic. But he looks like $1 million. I mean, he and Chris Henry are probably the two guys that like just jump out at you physically in terms of the skill players. So that's another guy to maybe keep an eye on. I'm super skeptical of that one. Maybe I shouldn't be. Maybe I should be talking about that one a little more than I do. But I'm skeptical of that one. But he's down here looking good.
As we talk about the money and where you can spend it and maybe where you can hide not spending it, I am so out on big money tight ends at this point when the money is so finite in the positions that you absolutely have to have. I just don't feel like it's money well spent getting a top tier number 1, 2, or 3 tight end. It just doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, certainly a pretty incredible looking kid. No doubt about that. All right, brother. Well, we appreciate the report from the scene in San Antonio. Our man, Mark Givler, always on the scene. And we will double back after the game and talk some more about how this wrapped up. And we've got to catch up on everything that's been going on with Ohio State as far as the roster, the transfer portal, talent acquisition, and maybe some philosophical changes we're seeing from the top. Thank you so much, Mark Givler. Thank you for joining us here at Buckeye Huddle. We'll be back to talk to you guys soon. Have a great one.